cut you down!
On the surface, Annulus looks like a game we've all played before, a turn-based tactical RPG with grid-based combat, character progression in a war-torn fantasy setting. But spend a little more time with it and it starts to form into something new and interesting. Set in the dark, fractured land of Noviceth, Annulus has you fighting through battles in a world shaped by your decisions. Hey turn-based lovers, this is Leaf, and in the advent of its release, we are taking a look at the dark fantasy world of Annulus. We've covered this game before, but we are diving back in for a fresh preview. But first, we'd like to thank Nirvana for giving us the opportunity to cover their game and for sponsoring this video. At a glance, Annulus feels familiar in the way a lot of modern turn-based tactical RPGs feel familiar. You recruit a roster of unique characters, build a team, level them up, collect gear, and take them into grid-based battles with positioning, unit types, and team compositions. But there is also a distinct identity here. The setting leans hard into gritty medieval warfare with a heavy dose of Lovecraftian imagery layered over, well, everything. So instead of a clean fantasy battlefield, you get a world that feels grim, dangerous, and a little bit cursed. And it's a world where factions are constantly in conflict, a world where your decisions can affect the outcome of certain events and how different groups see you, and it's a world where the story is shaped by the kind of mercenary work you take on and the people you decide to help. The game follows Wade, a mercenary captain navigating this war-torn land. The story is delivered through a mix of cinematic scenes and visual novel-style dialogue, which is fairly common in this genre. On top of the main story, there are also side quests which provide additional stories that expand the lore, which is especially important in a game like this, which helps give players a reason to be invested over time. One of the first things that stand out is the camp system. This is where you manage a lot of your roster's progression, including leveling up your units and recruiting additional mercenaries. It starts out relatively bare, but as you play, more options open up and the camp becomes a central hub for developing your roster. Then there's the map, which acts as your main way of moving through the game's content. Again, this is the kind of familiar structure SRPG players know very well. You progress through story stages, clear battles, collect rewards, unlock more content, and keep strengthening your squad. Progressing through the story, you'll run across camps, towns, NPCs, and a lot of other side interactions along the way. They flesh out the world by expanding its lore, and they do occasionally provide quests and rewards. Some of these are probably optional, easily missable, but they help in substantiating the world as more than just a sequence of battle maps. And it feeds directly into one of the more interesting parts of Annulus: player-driven narrative and exploration. Depending on the choices you make, you can become allies or enemies of different factions, and your reputation changes the kinds of stories and opportunities you encounter as you progress. And in a genre where many games can start to feel mechanically similar, this kind of branching structure is one of the clearest ways to stand out. Of course, the most important part of any tactical RPG is the combat, and Annulus knows exactly what it is trying to be. It's a grid-based turn-based strategy with rock, paper, scissors style mechanics, unit synergies, and dynamic battlefields that can quickly turn a confident win into an unexpected head-scratcher. It's not really reinventing the genre, but it uses what's available to deliver a satisfying SRPG experience. And from my experience playing the game, it definitely feels like they've put a lot of thought into how they wanted battles to play out. What I really liked about Annulus is it never seemed content with just dropping you into a copy-pasted map and asking you to trade blows until one side topples over. Different story chapters throughout your playthrough will introduce different gimmicks to every level, and those gimmicks change how you approach a fight in a pretty meaningful way. Early on, the gameplay is fairly straightforward, but later stages start introducing battlefield effects that force you to adapt whether you like it or not. Some tiles would heal units, some grant damage resistances, others have consumable pickups that provide temporary buffs. Then later on, the game flips that idea and starts using environmental traps and hazards that punish careless movement, which changes the whole rhythm of combat. At first, you'll probably start rushing forward to try and control the vantage point, but after a while you'll find yourself playing more tactically, setting up defensive positions, creating flanking opportunities, and turning the battlefield into your very own personal kill zone. And when the environment starts affecting combat, that tactical sense becomes even more important. Terrain, weather, environmental effects, and day and night cycles can all shape the way a battle unfolds, which means the battlefield itself is part of the strategy, which is a very big deal, especially considering how deep the strategy required to take control of the battlefield already is. There are times when acts of nature ends up being just the thing you needed, or the reason why you're forced to go back to the drawing board. Such features create engaging and, most importantly, memorable battles. Unit design also plays a big role here. As opposed to the usual design of just reskin damage dealers, the character classes in Annulus appear to serve distinct battlefield functions. In one setup, you might have an archer handling range pressure, a defender soaking damage and protecting the team, and mounted cavalry moving around the board to finish off weakened enemies or applying pressure to vulnerable targets. And this becomes even more interesting when you consider how hard some matchups can punish poor team compositions. A team that performs well against one group of enemies can easily fall apart if another specific threat shows up and shuts down your formation. That is where Annulus seems to find some of its best tactical tension. So you can't just rely on your favorite SR unit all that much, as it pays more to invest in a decent team rather than an individual unit. And herein comes the game's character growth systems, which look deeper than they first appear. One of the more appealing features is the evolution system for common units. Rather than being locked into a single development path, some characters can branch into different specialized roles. A sorcerer, for example, can evolve into different elemental variants like fire, water, ice, lightning, or poison, depending on what your team needs. Units like guards can also branch into offensive vanguard-style units or backline protectors. This flexibility is huge because it means even lower rarity characters can stay relevant by evolving into something useful for your roster. Meanwhile, more unique characters like Wade seem to follow a more linear growth path, which makes sense. Not every unit needs the same level of customization. Some characters are meant to be anchors for the story and the squad, while the others exist to give you more variety and tactical flexibility. Visually, Annulus also makes a very strong impression. The game leans into atmospheric presentation with dynamic weather, detailed lighting, and battlefields that feel like they belong to a world that has seen a lot of violence. Paired with a wide array of cinematics that tell a good chunk of the story, Annulus offers a pretty cinematic, turn-based strategy experience. Right now, Annulus looks like a tactical RPG with a strong aesthetic, a flexible roster system, and a combat loop that is trying to do more than just replicate genre basics. While it's clearly operating in a space that feels very familiar to players who already spend time with games like these, it introduces a bunch of unique systems that make it stand out from the rest. So if you're looking for something that combines grim dark fantasy, turn-based strategy, faction-driven storytelling, and a battlefield that actually asks you to think, Annulus is definitely one to keep an eye on. That is it for this preview of Annulus, and if you like what you saw, the game is out now on Steam, Android, and iOS, and you can check the link in the description to try the game out for yourself completely for free. That'll be all for today. Remember to hit like, subscribe if you're new around here, and remember to follow turn-based lovers for everything turn-based. That has been Leaf, and I'll see you guys on the next one.